Hi, my sweet friends. I hope that I can meet you guys in person one time just to, say, oh, yeah, now I know what you look like. Hopefully, I got to meet you at Flank, or if you're coming to Flank, then I'll get to see you there. Because this has just been a real honor just hanging out with you guys a couple of times and sharing some of my favorite things with you, some ways I try to meet students where they are, and tech tools. Yeah, I love technology. So hopefully, this is going to give you some good ideas. Technology for the world language classroom. Once again, my name is Carmen Scoggins, and don't forget, you can always email me at carmenscoggins@gmail.com. And I do hope that you are doing well in whatever point we are in the school year at this point, and that you're just making things happen and making connections with students and just celebrating all the time and helping build students' proficiency in language. So let's get started. The tiny URL for this presentation is NH Tech Tools, so New Hanover Tech Tools. You should be able to access it and just go through it and revisit some of the things that I talk about today, and take your time with things. Email me and say, I want a little bit more information about this particular topic, and I'll be happy to help you. So our goals for our time together are all things tech. I can choose a technology tool that supports my learning target or targets. I can rethink a tech tool to see its possibilities, and I can use technology to aid in student learning. Before we begin, I'm going to pause for like 10 seconds, and I want you to just verbalize or just think in your heads about what your favorite technology tool is right at this moment. Now, I know some of you are going one-to-one, so each student will have a device, but right now, if you could just blast it out, what is your favorite tech tool? Okay, so a little bit of my technology journey. I am a Gen Xer. That means I'm of a generation that wasn't born. Well, I was born with technology, of course. I was born in 1971, but technology was different. I had a phone in my room, which I thought was awesome. A TV that had a back that was like this big. I had a cassette tape in my car. The first cell phone I had, of course, flipped open, things like that. So I truly believe that my generation had to evolve as the technology evolved. So one of the things that I kind of became known for in my school, Watauga High School, is I always searched out the new technology trends, and I would always be the guinea pig who was willing to reserve the lab, because that's what we had to do. We had to think 2 months in advance so we could get the computer lab. And now I try not to take technology for granted because I have access to it all the time. But I know that I'm very, very lucky and blessed that I do have access as much as I do. So if you're not quite there yet, that's okay. Still, some of these tools, you can work with them and figure out how to use them as your own journey with technology evolves. So one of the things that I need you to think about is you can see, maybe if you look down here, that this is sort of a backward design, technology in reverse kind of thing. My main message to you is right here on the screen. Don't use technology for technology's sake. If all you need is a piece of paper and an ink pen or a paper clip or each other's voices, that is all the technology you need. Don't force technology when it doesn't need to be there. As you guys go one-to-one with student devices, I'm sure the expectation is going to be that that you try to be as paperless as possible and whatever. But sometimes it's okay if you want students to write things down or draw things out. And you don't need what we consider high-tech technology for that. You just need some basic things. So don't force it, okay? But let's look at this infographic. Think about your goals. Does the tech tool support your end goal? What do you want students to know, be able to do, and understand? Does it support your destination? Is it relevant to supporting a real world experience? Now, for us, I live in Boone, North Carolina, and so it's kind of isolated, literally, in a geographic setting. So A lot of my students haven't been too many places. I know that seems interesting even in 2022, but it's true. They are, some of them have been confined to just where our community where we live, and the mountains provide a geographic barrier. So now, on the other hand, I have kids that are more well traveled than I am at 50 years old. So I've got this huge dichotomy of different levels of students and their experiences. But as I think about the technology I'm going to use, is it relevant in even supporting what I'm trying to do with the language? Don't force it, okay? Assessment, does it assess or measure proficiency in some way, or can I use the tool to measure proficiency in some way? Does it support the modes of communication? Interpretive, so that's listening, viewing, and reading; interpersonal, speaking and writing; and then presentational, practiced and perfected speaking and writing. So does it support one of the modes? Opportunities. Does the tech tool provide differentiated possibilities? We're going to have a section on that. I talked a little bit about differentiation in the meeting students where they are session. So it's something that I try to live and try to reach as my goal every single day, to make learning opportunities as differentiated as possible for my students. And the last thing, interest. Do the students even enjoy using the tech tool? I will say, so in Watauga County, we moved into our more modern, newer high school 12 years ago in 2010. And at that time, each student was given a device. So we have been one-to-one for 12 years, which it's amazing. And now we've changed. We've gone from these big clunky laptops to Chromebooks, of course, because that's just easier for us to manage and more cost effective. But we have had the opportunity to use technology with each student in our building for 12 years, which is huge. So again, my journey is maybe a little bit different. I didn't really have a choice. I had to jump in and start learning new things. And thank goodness, people are creative and technology has grown, and some tools have come and gone, and some have lasted a long time. And so I'll talk about the ones that have been around for a long time. Okay, this says there's more to tech than meets the eye. And isn't that the truth? Because, we think of technology as just open your computer, open your device, and let's get to some kind of game, or let's do this, or let's do that. But there's so much more that underlies the whole power of technology that we can leverage with our students. And I suggest that technology is a motivator. Obviously, we can play the games, we can do all the things. It can get a little bit competitive. We can allow students to express themselves and to explore different topics that are of interest to them, and to be creative. And I put Control Z on here because I have to do this all the time. If you don't know this keyboard shortcut, if you accidentally delete something or mess something up, you just hit Control Z and it undoes it. Thank you, Lord, because sometimes I'll be like, I just deleted like 5 things, and then Control Z, Control C. And just in terms of students, I talk to them about the power of Control Z, that it's okay, you're going to make a mistake. We can undo it and we can come back around and we can fix it. So no worries, right? I think that I teach high school Spanish, as you know. So I think my students, they think they're tech savvy, but just because they're on TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and stuff doesn't mean they're tech savvy. They're afraid when I give them a new tool to use. They're like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, you see that button that says start? Why don't you try going there first? So I tend to be a little bit more of a risk taker with technology, I think, than they are. So, but that's my job, to kind of vet the tool and to become the facilitator of it. So I also think that technology helps students grow. Again, when learning anything, and especially when learning a language, we're going to have to reiterate what we're trying to get our students to know, be able to do, and understand. We're going to have some kids that get it right away. We're going to have some students that need to go around that feedback loop. Once we give them some feedback, they're going to have to come back around again because they might not have gotten it the first time. We can use technology to plot their progress, all these gaming kinds of things. There's data that we can draw from it. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then they can see if they're progressing in any way. There are lots of tools that allow for that. And then just, again, that growth mindset, the power of yet. That's my favorite thing. Like what can you do right now, but what can't you do yet? But you know what? I'm going to be able to do that soon. The more I practice, the more I pay attention, I'll be able to do it. So the power of yet. And then I also believe that technology allows us to reflect. I am a big, I mentioned before, I reflect a lot. I'm very introspective, and I ask my students to be the same way, not maybe on the level that I am, but and I can get that through technology, or the technology can allow me to give them access to different things that will help them reflect on what their journey has been like as a language learner. So notice here, again, I use I can statements, so we have them reflect that way too. But notice here, this says feedback to students, growth mindset, feedback from students. I also want my students to give me feedback so that I can help move us forward, because otherwise I'm not going to know what they really think unless I ask them. I can check for understanding, of course, with technology, and I can encourage my students to level up. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that soon. So this was what my life looked like when we were teaching during COVID, right? Because we were teaching remotely. We were still expected to be at school, but our students were home learning via Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. And so I've kept this thought in my head every time I approach things, the idea of having two screens so that I can have my presentation on one, but I can see the Google Meet on another, so I can see my students' faces if they turn their cameras on. You know what I'm talking about? And just the idea that, okay, anytime I approach anything that I do in the classroom, I think of these two screens, even though I'm not teaching remotely anymore. And you're like, what are you talking about? What I mean is that I think of, as we get into this technology discussion, think of it from your point of view and the student's point of view. So always consider anything you do in the classroom. What do I need to bring? What does it mean for me? And what is it going to mean for my students? Because it's, like I said before, you're all in this together, and you're trying to create these shared opportunities, these shared experiences for students. And so it's going to be important that you keep their perspective in mind, but while also staying true to who you are, and just knowing yourself and your intuitions about teaching a world language. Okay, so this is how we're going to break this down. Technology for the world language classroom. We're going to look at tech trends, tech different, so tech tools that allow for differentiation. I've already mentioned some in the meeting students where they are session, if you've watched it. Tech check, the way we can use technology to assess our learners. And then tech mode, different tech tools that support the three modes of communication. I tried to break it down for you so you'll have a big overview of the kinds of things I do with students. I will have to say that sometimes I overwhelm myself because I see it, or I hear about a new tech tool. I'm very, very lucky. I typically get to go to ACTFL and SCOLT and Flank and different conferences throughout the year, whether virtual or face-to-face, because I'm presenting at all of them basically. And I try to listen and think, what's Meredith White talking about now? Or what's Leslie Grand talking about now? What tech tool is trending? And then I want to come back and use it with my students. So sometimes in the last couple of years, I've tried to narrow down what I use with students. So some of the tech tools, don't be like, oh my gosh, Carmen uses all these tech tools. I do off and on, but there are some that are tried and true that I use more consistently than others. So don't feel like you have to do all the things. Okay. So we'll start with technology that is trending, hopefully. Okay. So actually, I don't know if it's trending right now, because this has been around for a little while, but it is so cute. Hang on to it. This is actually an app that you have to put on your phone. So I can't ask my students to get apps because, they barely have enough space for all the other stuff they want on their phones, but I can use it to set up little conversations. I can make it one-sided. I can make it between characters in a short story we're reading or in a video or whatever. and leave it so they have to finish the conversation or start the conversation and then they have to finish the conversation. Let me stop right now. Each of these icons is clickable. So when you have the presentation, tinyurl/nh tech tools, you can click on these so you don't have to remember what all of these things is called, okay, are called. Texting story, that's this one. So I'm just going to play this for you. This is just funny. Okay, this is not an example I would use with students. This is a conversation between me and Bradley Cooper. Yeah, I'm interested in a movie with Bradley Cooper. Yes. Okay. Last one. All right. So you can see, obviously that's totally stupid, but you can see that you can create two characters and they can have a conversation back and forth, back and forth. And as I type and make a mistake, it shows me deleting it and retyping it, and then just creates a little video for you. So imagine the possibilities of using this with students. Again, just to set the tone for something or to have a conversation, or they provide you with all the words and you just create it and make the little videos. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with this, but it is really cute. It is really fun. And the students like it so much. Texting story. Okay, next we'll go to all things that are Google slide templates, because that's the world we live in, right? Thank goodness for the Google suite. But this particular link, this will take you to Slides Mania. Behind my face right here, Slides Go and Slides Carnival are also two sites that I use all the time. Slides Mania, these are some template examples, again, with choice boards, and there's like a mystery top secret thing right here. This is the actual presentation I'm using right now with you, which is so cute. You can use it for planning and staying organized, whatever. But each of these has just beautiful Google slide templates so that you're not stuck with just what Google provides you, because it's kind of boring. I've mentioned many times I'm super visual, so this kind of thing really draws in students. If you give presentations like I do, they're also really fun. I used to use a website design tool called Wix, W-I-X, for all my presentations. I would just choose a template and sort of let it inspire me. But I haven't used Wix in a long time because I found these cool tools, and they seem to be just a little bit easier to put together. And so now I go and I think this is my topic, and I start looking for templates, and then I'm like, oh, I can do this and this, and it's amazing what you can come up with. You can also suggest it for students who are trying to create their own presentations. Really, really cute. Okay, again, this isn't a particular site, but you know I'm big on authentic resources, so hashtag #allthreads. And again, you can search Twitter, just Google. Okay, this, I should have just put the big Google logo right here, because to find this infographic, I would have looked up La Nutrición Infografía. Boom. And then you see all these images, and then you just use them. You can create, sentences or questions or whatever you need to do for students, just to support them as they are using a real authentic resource. And remember, the way we define authentic resource is that a native speaker of the language creates this whatever for a speaker of that same language. So if I make a video about what I did over the summer, that's not an authentic resource because I'm not a native speaker of Spanish, and I made it and it's contrived for the level of language of my students. But these are real. Like, these tweets are real. These Instagram posts are real during COVID. These infographics I use and these videos, they're in commercials and all kinds of things, and newspaper articles, they're all real. And so again, just use Google. That's the technology tool, but to again, I say leverage the power to search for all these authentic resources, because they're right there waiting for you to grab them. Bitmoji, what this says behind my face. Tú puedes, yay. So Bitmojis are fun. I use them every day. on my Canvas announcements, just because I don't know, my hair's a little different now, but whatever. One time I dressed up like my Bitmoji for Halloween. It was pretty funny. But anyway, so it's just a fun way to add a little bit of humor to remind students that you're human and that you're kind of with the current trends of technology. And the greatest thing, now I can't speak to all the languages that you guys might represent, but I'm pretty sure if you have Bitmoji on your phone, then you can change the language. And that's how I got all these into Spanish. My Bitmoji is in Spanish. And so when I need to search for something, I just search for it in Spanish, of course. And there they are. And then I just send them, I airdrop them to my computer or however I do it and send it to myself, email it to myself. Also, you can get the Chrome extension that just sits up on your computer. And if you use Chrome, which I'm assuming you do, then you can just click the extension and type in like lunes and it will generate Bitmojis for you that you can use for whatever you need to. It's really easy and it's super fun. And I use it every day, literally. Okay. And also keeping things light and upbeat and just relaxed with Snapchat filters. Now these are actual videos of you, and you can watch them if you feel so inclined when you are looking at this presentation later. But these are not super flattering, but Snapchat filters make your skin look really good sometimes. So I like to use them for that. As I get older, I'm like, let me put on a good filter, right? But with students, I might use them to make memes. I use a funny filter and I make a meme or I make a video like this one. I don't know if you've watched the tech video yet, but I talked about an online escape room. So I talked to my students about how I was trapped at home and I needed them to help me escape from my house and stuff like that. So just fun, just levity, and just again reminding students that you're relevant and that you're making an effort, because I think they think that's pretty cool. Okay, I have to tell you that my very, 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 very favorite tool besides Edpuzzle is Giphy. Now I say GIF instead of GIF. I think the creator says GIF, but to me, it's GIF. So that's what I'm going to say. But regardless of what you call it, they're amazing because they're moving pictures. And think about all the visual stimulation that it gives our students. They can talk about them, they can create them. Notice I used something called 5-second GIF. It's an app on my phone to make these little GIFs live, with my students, of me and of them. But there are lots of other things that they can do just with their computer camera, if they have a computer screen, or with their phones, that will turn things into GIFs. So it's really fun if you want students to actually do that and make something like that. I often use it if whatever we're talking about, if we're talking about art or whatever, I'll find a GIF that relates. The GIFs go on my announcements each day. So whatever the theme of our time together is for that day, that's the GIF that ends the announcement. So, and we use them all the time for having students create sentences or complete thoughts about what's going on. We have them as we're learning new things. We have a match. Here's a sentence. What GIF would it match to? I mean, so we just use them all the time. And again, they're funny. This is, quote, the language they speak. Students understand GIFs because they're surrounded by them all the time. Oops, went too far. Okay. All right, so that was technology trends. Now, again, some of those things, all of those things actually have been around a long time, but I call them trending because I've used them for a long time and they're still cool. Okay, that's all. Now, technology that supports students. So tech different. If you've already watched the other presentation about meeting students where they are, I talked a little bit about differentiation by task, by choice, things like that. But technology is also a great way to allow students to demonstrate what they know, are able to do and understand in just different ways through these different tools. So here are a couple I'm suggesting. Again, don't forget each of these icons is clickable. This is called Blend Space. It has been around for a very long time. I don't use it that much now, but I certainly did when it first came out. I was like, this is awesome. And it's super easy to use. What you will get is some kind of grid like this. Along the side, you will see that it allows you to search for images or videos or, again, authentic resources, whatever your topic is. And you literally just drag and drop it into this grid. And the way it works is that when the students have access, is that they have to do what's in grid 1 before they can go to grid 2, before they can go to grid 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. So you can kind of curate all the things you want your students to be working on in a particular order. There's that scaffolding that we talked about a little bit. And you can also differentiate like which group of students gets this grid versus this grid. So it's super easy to use and it's great. And then students can comment on the side and it's just really, really fun. So you might want to try that if you are like, if one of your PDP goals is to try to differentiate more for your students, you might want to try this tech tool blend space. Now, this used to be called Go Formative. So in my brain, that's what it's called. That's why I put Go Formative. They've dropped the Go. It's just called Formative, but it is exactly what it says. It is a formative tool. It can be a formative assessment in the middle of what you're doing or even used for a summative assessment. But it's so easy. Now, you can see I took a screenshot of what I have access to. I do not pay for this. Most of the sites I use, I don't pay for because I'm a teacher. You know what I mean by that, right? So I don't pay for this, but if you know the name Meredith White from Georgia, queen of all, okay, she does pay for this and she pretty much runs like most of the things that she does through formative. It can do everything. You can just see here, you know, multiple choice questions, audio, video, short answers, show your work. This was a show your work kind of scenario. If you have math teacher friends, I mean, there's Desmos, of course, for them, but you've got something like this where students can write out problems. But notice what's kind of grayed out. I don't have the audio feature, categorize, graphing, etc. Because I use other tools for those things, but it would be a nice just one-stop shop. The other thing about this tool and all these tools really is you can go and search for what other teachers have made and just snatch it right up. I mean, borrow it and then adjust it to fit what you need it to be for your students. And then you have it already made. It's great. And students just, you'll get a login or like a code that you'll give them and that's what they'll click on and they're in. It's very simple. And then it lines everything up so it's really easy for you to assess too. And a lot of these tools we're talking about, these differentiation tools and the assessment tools I'll talk about in a minute, are like self-checking, which is golden since our time is super limited. Check it out. Nearpod is very similar to Pear Deck. Now, our school pays for Nearpod because these are tools that are starting to get a little bit more involved and they do cost money, but there is a free version of Nearpod. I don't know really what's available, but if you are at a school or if you're interested in writing a grant or getting some funding for a tool, this tool is really cool because it can be, like it says, it can be teacher paced or student paced. So whatever I create, I could do things like where students highlight something or they circle something or it's open-ended or they can record their voice and I can see what's happening on their screens. So from my end, I can freeze my screen that they can't see, but I can see how each student is answering. So I can give them immediate feedback. I can verbalize the feedback or I can make a note of it and come back and give them feedback later. So it's awesome to see what kids are able to do in real time. So you might want to check out Nearpod or talk to your IT person, your instructional technology people, see if they can offer you some support on that. It's a great tool. Okay, Wiser is another thing that you guys might know the name Leslie Baldwin. She's the World Language Coordinator in Winston-Salem for SCIPE and the Executive Director of SCULT, one of my dear friends. And she asked me when COVID hit, she was like, do you know Wiser? Do you know this site? I was like, no, and I'm gonna need to know what it is. So again, I mentioned this in the technology, I mean, not in the technology, in the meeting students where they are session, that this is a great tool for differentiation. It's a great tool for scaffolding, and they do market themselves as online worksheets. I'm not a fan of the word worksheet because to me it sounds like just practice where they're just filling in blah blah blah. But these the platform allows you to create all kinds of different experiences for students. This is the one I talked about in the meeting students where they are, where we use it for scaffolding. So students have to describe houses that are on the screen, and we give them some sentence starters, and then eventually we remove the scaffolding over time. But you can put in videos, you can put in your own audio. This is how we loosely do interpersonal communication sometimes when we have 30 students and we can't get around and talk to every student. So I'll ask a question, they have to hit the record button to answer back, ask me a follow-up question, etc. So it's great because they can record their voice, they can do video. I can do all the things too. Now I have a paid version of this, but you certainly don't have to. Like, it does so many of the features, everything you would need without paying for it. So just check it out. Wiser.me is really great. And again, it's one of those sites that you can just type in whatever and see who has created something on that topic and just use this worksheet. That's what it says. Use it. Yes, please. It's very useful. Okay, so we've already done technology for tech trends, what's trending, tech different. These are just, I mentioned just, there's just a couple of things in each of these categories. So it's not an all extensive list of all the tools that I use, but it's a good start. So tech check, what does that mean? How do we assess where our students are, what they're able to do, who knows it, who doesn't, who still needs more practice? Well, obviously our big favorite things are GimKit. BlueKit, of course, is huge. I don't think the BlueKit's, no. It's on the next slide. Okay, so GimKit, when it first hit, gosh, it's been a while now, maybe, I don't want to speculate, 6 years ago, maybe. A 15-year-old from Seattle, Washington created this game platform, and is his company now. It's pretty awesome. And he hosted a GimKit time for us during a SCOLT conference. I'm the past president of SCOLT, and I got to meet him, and I was fangirling about as hard as you can be. So, and he was like 20 years old. So pretty impressive. If you've ever played GimKit, I'm sure you have with your students. There, you can tell it was designed by a kid because of the clapping at the end and all the different modes. And now this is he's another person that keeps it real. Like he and his team, they create new modes all the time. They have an Among Us like mode. They have fishing. I mean, they have all kinds of things that are competitive, and the students really like it. So these check for understanding. Of course, you've got the OG, which is Kahoot. Again, when it hit, it was amazing because we hadn't seen anything like this, right? I mean, it was so brand new. BlueKit, of course, is huge. Again, each of these is clickable. Quizzes and Quizlet Live is lit. I mean, that's what's up, right? And you can do all kinds of things with these tools. The greatest thing about them is, now, for me, I'm not gonna lie, I mostly use them so that students can practice. I mentioned before that all these tools help students move the concepts and the vocab and the things that we're learning into a more of their working memory so that it eventually gets put into their long-term memory. But I also use it just as a quick break for myself, right? Because kids are going to be engaged when these games are on. But your brain can like think ahead to the next, what's coming up next, what am I doing next, without acting like you don't know what you're doing, because you have a couple of minutes to just take a breath, and that's important too. I mentioned using Snapchat filters, so these are a couple of the filters that I use to make memes at the if you use quizzes, when a student gets a question right or wrong, a meme pops up, and I just put my own memes in there. And it takes a while for the kids to realize it's me. They're like, oh my gosh, all those memes are you. Did you make those? I was like, no. Yes, I made them. How else would they get there? So this is old school Kahoot, and we used it to get to know each other a little bit. Students wrote sentences about themselves and I made them the questions. And then when their names would come up on the screen, we would just see if we could complete with everybody like, well, who are Emma? Who's Emma? Who are Emma and Gracie? I don't know them. And then I was like, well, we've been in school 6 weeks. It's time for you to get to know your classmates. So that's kind of fun. And they like seeing their names on the screen, it's kind of cool. But again, what I was going to say a minute ago is the whole concept of all these gaming tools is to get some data. So if you are in a data-driven school, or if you have to provide evidence of what your students are doing or whatever, or just to inform you and inform your instruction, they all come with some kind of report that you can generate at the end. And just see, okay, either I wrote this question badly because everyone missed it, or this is something they still don't understand because it's all red. Or look at all the greens. We don't need to talk about this anymore because it seems like they have a pretty good understanding of it. So that's really what these tools are for. But again, like I said, I like to use them for a little bit of a break. Okay, Jamboard, again, hit the tech world right when it was needed the most. That was right during COVID. So this is a Google product again. Thank goodness for Google. And it's just one of the features. If you go to your drive and you can create a Jamboard, I'm sure you're familiar with it. But it is a collaborative space for your students. You can use it in so many different ways. Actually, if you Google, and I should have put this on here. Now I'm just thinking about that, and I'm sorry that I didn't. But if you Google like Jamboard templates, they have there's a series called Ditch That Textbook. It's a physical book, but they have so many great ideas for using technology. And I found a just 20 Jamboard templates that you can copy where students can drag and drop things or circle things or whatever. And it's awesome. So check it out. Just Google Jamboard templates and things will pop up like they do for Google Slide templates. So, and I use this in a lot of different ways. One of the fun things to do is this little feature on the bottom. I might put some questions up or some answers maybe. And I'll ask the question or whatever, and they have to laser what they think the answer is. Now it gets a little bit chaotic and wild, and again, a lot of these tools, like these drawing tools and the tools like this, and anytime you give students access to real live time, like whatever's they're doing on their screen is gonna appear on your screen. You just have to have a conversation with them about what's appropriate. I've never had like any weird body parts pop up or anything, but you never know. So just, keep it real, have that conversation. And you can always find out who the culprit is anyway. Excuse me. So it's fun, but they have to learn to respect technology. Same thing with this whiteboard. Excuse me, my voice is dry today. I mentioned whiteboard before too, but this is like those old school whiteboards that you would just have, and students would write a marker and then they erase their answer, they hold them up and they erase their answer, and you're ready to move on. This is great because now it's right here on their computer. And so again, I use these a lot to help them visualize vocabulary, visualize a scenario. I might read a short paragraph and they draw as much of the paragraph that they understand. I might just, I can do it however I want to. Again, there's the scaffolding piece. I can give them as much or as little as I want to, and they create the image. And it's really, really great. So it works well, and it's super easy to set up. You don't have to have an account or anything. You just create a new class. They get a code, they type it in, you're live. You get to see what they're doing in real time. Again, it's sort of like Nearpod where you can see, that kid gets it or that kid doesn't. And then they love to see each other's drawings, and they are hilarious sometimes. So it's funny. And, we have a good time doing it. They love it. They ask me, are we going to do that whiteboard thing? No, we just did it, but they enjoy it. So check it out. Okay. So we've hit trends, differentiation, assessment, and now technology tools for all the modes of communication. And of course, these are the 3 modes: interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational. Interpersonal, we'll start with that first. Now, again, these are just tools. The best interpersonal is this, two students talking, or you talking to the students, right? That's the most effective form of technology. When we came back from COVID, and we were in cohorts. Like half of our school came, and the other half stayed home, and then they switched the other. It was chaotic, but I was having students use like the Google Chat platform. My level threes, remember, they work in teams, and I was making them chat because we were supposed to be so far apart from each other, and we were masked and whatever, and our desks were all spread out. And one kid raised his hand. He was like, "Miss Goggins, this is great," and everything. He was like, "Well, why can't we just talk?" And I was like, there's an example of me trying to force the technology when it didn't need to happen. So we did. We just turned, we stayed distant, and we talked. But I was trying anyway. So interpersonal, some suggestions, just a couple. One is if you are using Canvas, if you are at the high school, I believe you guys use it at the high school, there's a discussion board that feature. And again, this would be writing, but you can still go back and forth with your comments in that way. Okay. Remind is an app. It has been around forever. We use it as a school for like special announcements that need to come to the faculty, like if we're going to have a lockdown drill, or if something's going on and testing is running over, or whatever, we use it. But I've used it with students before. Now, this is not something I'm actively using with students, but it has been around so long, and it is truly vetted. And even elementary teachers use it. You might have your own kids, and their teachers might have used it with them. It's just a very safe way to communicate with students. We're not supposed to have anyone's cell phone number or anything, but you can use it. And it was helpful here in Boone when we would miss 20 days for snow. We don't do that anymore because of remote learning. But I would just use it as a way to reach out to my level 3 students and say, what are you guys doing? And how are you spending your day? And of course, in the target language, and they could just message me back if they got the message. If not, it wasn't a big deal. But it's just a quick, easy way back and forth. And you can see I was having a little conversation with one of my students on this particular day. So pretty easy. Also, speaking of easy, Google Voice, again, has been around for a long time. You create a number that's just yours, and students can leave you voicemails. So the way I used to use this in the past was I would set my Google Voice up, and I would leave them a prompt like, give me, of course, in the language, give me 5 recommendations of things I need to do over spring break. Of course. So we know those kinds of statements are the subjunctive. We recommend that you go to Wilmington, that you blah, blah, blah. Okay. But I also found it very useful and more interpersonal when we used it with an escape room. I say we, my colleague Savannah Wilson and I made an escape room last semester, and we used it where they had to call, listen to our prompt, leave a message, and then after I made sure that their message was correct, I sent them the secret code for the next thing or whatever. So it became interpersonal, and they can leave you a voicemail. So I would listen, and it transcribes the text for you. Now, it's not always going to be perfect because it's still Google, but you can tell kind of what they were trying to say and listen, and then you can text them back, and it's not using your cell number or your phone number. Now, you do see their numbers, but it's not like I'm going to pay attention to what their numbers are. And again, they get the text right back on their phone. It's so very, very cool and very easy to use. Okay, so that's interpersonal. And now interpretive. Remember, this is listening, reading, or viewing. And again, here I go with those authentic resources, infographics, videos. Things that I used to do. They just all these authentic resources. I cannot say enough. They just really changed how I approach everything. This is super interpretive. Very often, what we'll do, especially with level 1s, is we'll give them. Let's say we're talking about digital responsibility, digital identity. One of our units is called My Identity, and so we're not just able to describe ourselves. We're able to think about what kind of image are we putting out there on social media for others, and how important is it that we stay safe. So we might give students like a series of 5 infographics to look through, and they have to just give us information, different things. Now, and the way we roll this out is we say that this is how I do it at every level. If I'm asking you the question in English, you're allowed to respond in English. But if I'm asking it in the target language, then you have to respond in the target language, okay? And you might be like, well, we're supposed to use the target language 90%. Yes, but sometimes, and I think I mentioned this in our first PD, that if you are using the target language to go in and just to students that can find it too easily, they just go in and find exactly what you're trying to get them to say without really understanding it. And so in order for me to know that they know what's happening, I ask the question in English, so they have to go a little bit deeper and say, oh yeah, this is what's going on. And again, that begins to build confidence. The very first week of school with my novice, low kids, we're using infographics, and they're like, whoa, I can understand all of this. And I'm like, see, there you go. And so it works really well, and it builds their confidence. And again, this is interpretive. Okay, I've mentioned Edpuzzle like 5,000 times now. It is my very favorite tool. And I do have a paid version that I don't actually pay for. Somehow I got really lucky, and I started using it a lot. And I guess one of the creators was checking up on who was using it. And so he he got in touch with me and asked me if we could have a conversation. And I said, sure, and how I was using it with world languages. And so I somehow, after that, I've always had a free account. But if I were going to pay for anything, it might be this, because this is something that's super valuable. Again, I use it with all kinds of authentic resource videos. You just find the video that you want. Then you can embed questions, so you can do multiple choice. You can provide students with a lot of structure if they need it, okay, so that they're choosing. You can leave the questions open-ended. You could say, you know, like, what's happening in this scene? And then they have to generate a whole thought. Very often, and I've mentioned this before, with these completely wordless animated shorts I like to use, they basically generate the language that's happening when they're watching it on the screen. So they're watching the part, then they have to vocalize. You can also record your voice, which is genius, or type what's happening. And I might give it some parameters, like I might say, you know, this has to be in this tense or whatever, but it still allows them to kind of be able to say what they are able to, which is very convenient for them. That goes back to differentiation. But again, you can provide as much scaffolding or as little as needed. So it's just my favorite. Again, you just upload the video and you can embed questions. It's great. You could even do it with your own presentations. Like, if for some reason we have to go back to remote learning, I hope not, but if you record a presentation, you could embed things along the way to check for understanding from your students to make sure they're watching the video. So it doesn't matter what kind of video it is. So it's pretty cool. Check it out. Okay, so that was interpretive. So we did interpersonal, interpretive, and now presentational. I mentioned this on the scaffolding. This is an app on my phone. It's called Clip-O-Matic. I think I did pay for this app. I think it was like $4.99 or $5.99. I don't know if it's still a paid scenario because I've had it for so long, but it allows you to just talk over. You make a video, and whatever you say, whatever language you're using, it's going to type it in that language for you. Now, this is my example in English.
Hi, guys. So right now we're going to talk about the app Clip-O-Matic. And as you can see, as I'm recording my video, it's adding the text in whatever language I'm teaching straight onto the video. Super cool.
Right. And you can go back in, it's not going to do punctuation, but you can go back in and see the whole text block that it made. You can add the punctuation, the special characters, whatever you need to do. It is very, very useful. So these are two examples I have in Spanish. You can watch them later, but just things, again, when I was stuck at home during COVID, I would send to my students because it provides them with the language support right there on the video. So very cool. Check it out. Clip-O-Matic. Canva. You guys are familiar, I'm sure, with Canva. Now, I have never tried to do this, but I hear that you can get like a free teacher account. I'm pretty sure. So just investigate that, like an education account, and it opens up all the features of Canva. This is also collaborative. So if your students are creating some kind of presentation, you can do Instagram stories that are like Instagram story like without using Instagram. all kinds of different templates for anything that a kid might want to present. Uh, this is an infographic that my colleague Savannah Wilson and I created for a flank session a couple years ago. But it's just, and so she was at her house, I was at my house, and it's collaborative, just like all the Google tools are, but very, very cool. And then again, it's kind of like just let the students' creativity take over, because once they begin to look at the different templates, then they can say, oh, we're going to do this for this prompt or whatever. Very nice. Adobe Spark, or the Adobe suite of things, they call them, they change their stuff all the time, but is the same kind of thing. You've got like, here, check this out: Instagram story, Instagram post, Facebook post, photo collage, all kinds of stuff. This was just a little, like a little trading card where this kid was introducing himself. I mean, just all kinds of things that you can do, again, when students are ready to demonstrate what they've been learning in a presentational way. Adobe is a way to go. Vocaroo and other like online voice recorders, this has been around for a long time. It's a pretty easy setup. You just go to the site, the students can go to it, they click this giant red microphone button, they record their voices, whatever they're doing, and then they can send you the link. They could put it in Google Classroom, they can submit it in Canvas. They can even, there's an option, which I can't show you now because it's not live, but where they can create a QR code, and they could send you that, and you could do something with their presentation. So one time I might have students, my level threes, for example, they would get some kind of theme, like whatever. I mean, it could be just whatever kind of theme. They have to present it in a specific way. They use Vocaroo. They give me the QR code, and then all the codes go in the hall, so that presentational writing and speaking activity that we just did becomes interpretive listening. So then the students have to go around to each of the codes and get some information, whatever I'm asking about each one. So it's a great way to make a presentational tool, again, interpretive, if you want to use it that way. Very easy, very user-friendly. Again, something that I do a lot with students, because I have an iPhone and the majority of my students have iPhones, is to have them airdrop me videos or audio, like the voice memo. This is from voice memo, and they just airdrop me stuff. These are TikToks we made, that just whatever, just videos that they don't have to be just TikToks. They could be just regular videos. These are all audio files that they use their voice memo. I just this scenario was like, there were certain things in the hallway, and the students had one phone for like 2 or 3 people, and they would have to go around, hit the record button, and just start saying what they could about the images. I just did a similar thing with the threes. I gave them the choice of some kind of current event or theme they wanted to talk about, and they put the phone in the middle, and then they recorded it, and then I could just kind of monitor what was happening, and I'd go back and listen to them later. So it's super easy. And then they just airdrop Skog Dog, and then I get them all, and there you go. And I've never had any problems with kids airdropping me inappropriate things. So again, just have a good conversation, build those relationships first, like I mentioned, and then you shouldn't have any problems. Okay, and my favorite tool, and yours too, probably, for all the modes, is Flip. It's called just Flip. Now it's not Flipgrid anymore, but to me, it will always be Flipgrid. But this tool, again, came out, man, when we needed it. And it must have been designed just for language teachers, right? American Sign Language, any spoken language, any whatever. You've got a video, right? So you've got the kids, you can give them some kind of prompt. They can do their video. With my threes, I make them watch each other's videos and ask follow-up questions. So then it becomes a little bit more interpersonal. I can put things in that are interpretive, that they have to respond to. I mean, the sky is the limit with Flipgrid. It can be used for all the modes all the time, and it's free. Flipgrid was one of the things that I told my administrators. I was like, we have to have this for world languages. And it was a lot. It was expensive. And then all of a sudden Microsoft bought it, and it became free, and we got our refund back. And so now we just use it all the time. not excessively. I mean, we use it a normal amount, but it's just very, very useful for a language teacher. And also, if your kids don't feel comfortable with their faces on the screen, they can put different backgrounds on, or just have the audio or whatever. You can also tell them that the videos are moderated. You can turn that little switch on so that you are the only person who can see them in case they worry about stuff like that. But again, my threes, they don't really have a choice because they're going to use it more interpersonally to go back and forth a little bit. So Flipgrid is for all the modes. Okay, this is what we are recapping now. Tech trends, what we explored what was trending, tech different, how to use technology for differentiation, tech check, how do we assess our students with technology, and the modes of communication technology that supports those. Main thing, don't be afraid to try something new. I'm always the first one on the bandwagon. Oh, there's a new tool. I'm going to try it out, even live in front of students before I even know really what I'm doing. That's the way I learn the best. But if you don't feel that brave, just pick one or two things. You don't feel like you have to do it all. Okay, just choose one or two things that I talked about and try those out. And then maybe pick something else for the second quarter and the third quarter and the fourth quarter. One or two. See, look at him trying to decide. It's okay. Go with where you think you want to start. Think about your learning targets. Think about what's going to support them. Think about what your students are interested in the first place. Don't start from scratch. Upcycle, borrow from teachers, get ideas from them. All those other tools I said, you could search what a teacher has made. Go there first. Even Blue Kits and Gim Kits, you can do that and just modify it. You can just edit it and fix it for what your students need. Okay. What does fold in the cheese mean? Don't start from scratch. Okay. Again, who knows what the future holds, right? We have had to, we've done it all, guys. I'm not even going to lie. We've done it all. We've been successful. Our students have come out. They are still language learners. We're still making it happen in the classroom every day, whether you're teaching face-to-face, remotely, however the years progress. The main thing is that we keep all these things in mind, that there's always more to technology. Don't use it just for technology's sake. Use it as a motivator to help students grow and to reflect, because all these things are helping our students become better language learners. Yeah, and just remember for sure that last thing I'm going to say, the human connection far outweighs your internet connection. Okay, build those relationships, work with the kids, get to know them, let the technology support everything that you need to happen in the classroom or remotely or whatever, but don't forget about those human connections. Okay, that's my big message to you all. Thank you so much. Again, tinyurl.com/NH As always, reach out to me, carmenscoggins@gmail.com, if you have any questions, and let me know how I can support you. Say, here's what I want to do. What should I use? And I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you so much for your time. And I wish you all the best. Hope to see you at Flank sometime. Make sure you come up and say hi. And thanks, Travis. Yay.